Hello, and welcome to the most classy and serious of all the Out Past the Rings, Volume 73, also known as the I'm just kidding. Split 7-inch between Gift from God and Vane that came out, I think, on December 31st of 2016. I've got it listed as January 9th, 2017, but I remember specifically that Vane wanted to release their tracks prior to another band from their area also releasing an album they expect to be very big. So, that's when it was released. It was released on 500 black 7 inches, and we did no test presses for these. We skipped the, I skipped the test presses because I thought we would save some money, and we did. And I realized after that that at least from the plant that I was using, test presses really were a luxury and not necessarily necessary. They weren't necessary. That would be the proper way to say that. The labels involved were Dingleberry Records, Contrition Recordings, which was Gift from God's label, Structures Agony, which I believe was Connie's label from See You Space Cowboy, Zegma, and Long Rail Records from Italy, which I think is the label from the guy in One Dying Wish. There we go. So yeah, there's a lot of ties to those labels, which is pretty cool. 2 songs by Gift from God, 2 new ones, and 4 songs by Vane. I think 1 or 2 of these songs was like re-recorded. They showed up on some previous stuff. Vane had a fair amount of previous stuff. Gift from God only had the cassette, full length or EP, I don't even know, mini LP that I helped release the year prior, or earlier in 2016, I don't remember. So that's how I had the in with the band, and how the split came about. I was also there in 2016 at Swamp Fest 2 to see both bands play. Vane actually played right before I had to play in Miatej, and I remember just thinking, I don't want to follow this, but we had to, and we did. And it wasn't as good as Vane, obviously. Where am I going here? This was the last release before each of these bands signed to major labels. Vane signed to Closed Casket Activities, and Gift from God signed to Prosthetic Records. If you're wondering what the bands sound like, Gift from God have like a Me and Him Call It Us meets Love Lost But Not Forgotten, really shrieky, lots of vocalists, pretty all over the place and very heavy. And then you've got Vane, which is much more mathy, kind of like Psyopus, with maybe some Slipknot tied in there. I don't really listen to Slipknot, but I hear the name tossed out very often along with the band. But that's more with the Arizona. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. This was the first in a long line, maybe not the first, but the first major one that I remember going through search exhaustion with trying to find other labels, knowing that this was an incredible split, having such a hard time getting people to get on board with it. I guess at that time there weren't a lot of streamer labels around. Really catching these ones, I had exhausted most of the other ones. I think in hindsight, a fair amount of them probably like, darn. But considering the beef that followed later, maybe they're like, oh, woo! Who knows? Alright, so I guess that brings us to the shitty part of the split. After getting a lot of praise and everything seemed to be going pretty well, at one point, Gift from God told me that they were hoping to do a tour with Vane and stuff. This was earlier. There were, I guess, some issues with figuring out what the cover art was going to be between the bands. Vane wanted this one, and Gift from God was going for this one. I believe in the end I just suggested that they should just do a cover on each side, to which they agreed, and that worked out pretty well, I thought. And then woke up one day and Closed Casket had released the Vane 4 songs on a separate 7-inch listing, saying that this is the first time that Vane's been on vinyl. To which myself, and Gift from God especially, was kind of like, what's going on? No one knew. We didn't. I don't know what the communication was like at that point between the two bands. I'm assuming null. But for some particular reason, Vane didn't tell Closed Casket when Closed Casket bought their songs that this had already been released. because I got an email from Closed Casket saying, like, we're going to get some lawyers involved if you don't remove this stuff from Bandcamp. And I remember just being like, what the fuck is going on? So I emailed them back, and they were cool after that first initial. The lawyers thing freaked me out. I was like, what is going on? But they responded, and we got talking and stuff. And basically, yeah, they said they had no idea. I was a little surprised that more research hadn't been done, but I guess when a band is like, yes, you can release our 7-inch, they would usually say, this was also on a split, already released, that the label might still have 150 copies of. But they didn't. So we made an agreement I would take it off of Bandcamp after selling my remaining copies, and Closed Casket also decided to buy a couple copies as well, like 30 copies or something like that. I think we had 250 for Zegna Beach, and we went through all of them, with the exception of those ones that went to Closed Casket. So those are long gone and never, ever being repressed for what just happened, I just talked about. But also there was a follow-up in Exclaim magazine when Vane released their album afterwards, Arizone, and what was the title? Vane are about to release debut Arizone, but first want to settle scores with Gift from God. So there's that. And I also, instead of getting an email asking to take some of the Vane songs down after doing a specific post for them as per, which they knew about and approved and everything, instead of asking me to remove their videos, they put in like a copyright infringement thing into YouTube, so all of my YouTube videos almost got deleted. So after these two things, I was kind of done with them. So yeah, never ever getting repressed. It really leaves a sour taste in my mouth after, I've released 250 things, and there's been no issues really with any of the stuff that I had been involved with the exception of this. So it's a bummer to look back and you listen to it, you're like, yeah, and then you talk about anything regarding the bands, and it's like, ah. But I guess that's the way it is sometimes. It's just unfortunate the way that some people act. Anyway, so we should probably stop there before I say too much. Next is going to be Crowning Funeral Designs, which brings us back to a much happier time, and really was the catalyst that leads all the way up to now regarding Zegna Beach Records. So until then, I will take my last copy of Gift from God Vane, and I will do the only thing I know how to do, and